Good evening. I declare this the 12th ordinary meeting of the 176th session duly constituted and call upon the Secretary to read the minutes from the last meeting.
Hello. Just to clarify, I hate the colour yellow because it reminds me of the Lions Party, and I'm wearing this because it is Burns weekend. That is why I'm wearing this, and Tom told me not to change it. Anyhow, on Thursday the 5th of December 2024, the Queen's University Belfast Literary and Scientific Society convened for the 11th ordinary meeting of the 176th session. In collaboration with the English Society to debate the motion, this House supports government intervention to ban books in schools. Dressed as an ennobled train conductor from the 19th century, guest chair President Emeritus Calvin Black HLM with uniquely loud and lively remarks. Without House reports, he immediately discarded the 176 rules and imposed the 169 rules. We then moved to council amendments. President Dermot Hamill congratulated our three speakers on making it through to the Irish Times semi-final. MAP internal convener announced the internal meeting on Tuesday the 10th of December. President Dermot Hamill gave notice of Stephen Flynn MP coming to speak to the Society next Monday, and we've now missed all these things. We then moved to private members' business. Also, if there's a Christopher in here, I forgot to ask you your surname, and you will find that throughout this I refer to you simply as Christopher. Christopher Redacted raised the topic of the politically correct name of the assisted dining bill. Responses were heard from Ryan Hoey, Dermot Hamill, HLM, and Ryan Hoey, HLM. Tom Burns, HLM, raised the declaration of martial law in South Korea and then declared the greatest act of liberal democracy we had ever seen. A lot of responses were heard from Hussein Badair, Jonathan Massey, Christopher, Ray Thane, President Dermot Hamill, HLM, and Brian Hoey, HLM, who told us about his friend that lives in South Korea. And when Brian asked him what's going on in South Korea, he responded saying, "I don't know, I'm playing League of Legends." Jack Douglas then raised how suddenly a switch from Pepsi to the quote-unquote inappropriate word pejorative Coke. Responses were heard from Kira Swale, HLM, Hugh Child, who defended the Pepsi group very boldly, Jack Murray, Ray Thane, Hussein Badair, and Max Kieran. Jack Douglas then asked whether anyone in the House had seen the healthcare CEO who was shot in New York, presumably not. Responses were then heard from Hugh Child, President Dermot Hamill, HLM, Ryan Hoey, HLM, Christopher, Kira Swale, HLM, and then we moved to President's questions. Jonathan Massey asked the President, the guest chair rather, this House has suffered from presidents who don't eat the main meal of the day. Did you eat breakfast? Calvin admitted that his diet has changed in the past 7 years. He said this meme will never die, but he did also say that he knew this question was inevitable. Thus considered eating an Ulster fry that morning, but then he did not and had a singular can of Red Bull. Dermot said that it is not easy to eat breakfast, as though anyone was greatly concerned about Dermot overindulging, turned aside, disappeared. We then moved to Hussein Badair, who strangely presented the guest chair with a copy of his government ID. Mr. Gerard remarked whether the fire had gone to the chair's head. President Emeritus Calvin Black said it never left. Christopher asked the President what he was doing last night. I think this one actually went to Dermot Hamill, who said he watched some silly childish TV show that I had no idea what it was, and he drank 8 Peronis, which is an achievement for Dermot. We then moved to Flynn, who proposed that he should read the minutes more often. No one liked that, sorry Flynn. We then went back to Sinberry, who asked, would you give the grill anabolic steroids? And then Jonathan Massey asked, which government would you topple? Calvin put his arm around President Dermot Hamill of the 176th session and sincerely said, I know which. Calvin then gave everyone a membership card, strangely, and a voter of prior opinion was then called. There were 9 votes for the proposition, 9 for the opposition, 2 for the abstention, and the result was the opposition carried the motion. First the speaker was former President Emeritus Tailteann McSparran, HLM. She opened by saying, much like an English degree, you all have a much easier job today. Tailteann told the House how on the last day of secondary school, her teacher had gifted her a poetry book on intercourse. She got it signed and then presented it to her principal, who, noticing the nudity took it off Tailteann. She then moved on how government banning books in schools is a way to shape our classroom to be more effective. We can have a streamlined curriculum which allows us for better learning, because children need time to mature. Take Dermot Hamill. As a child, he supported the SDLP. She then said, I did an English degree. At the end of the day, why would you let a child watch 50 Shades of Grey? So why would you let them watch or read the book? Books should be held to the same standard as media, films, theatre and politics. First in the opposition was Max Kieran. Schools are meant to be controlled learning environments where we teach our children skills that will apply later in life. And talking about contentious books in schools is the greatest possible environment you could do this. In a school, you can make sure with the curriculum that the children are discussing it in a healthy manner. Allowing children to explore controversial ideas and writings on the internet allows for the depletion of vulgarity and can result in further glorification. Max said that we shouldn't place parental choice above a child's need to learn and educate themselves. Second on the proposition was Jack Murray. He said we have to take a common sense approach. There are some things in books which are appropriate for schools and others which are not. Jack gave the example of a book he questionably found called Welcome to Sex, which gave a detailed overview of homosexual acts and other aspects of different things. He then asked, in what situation should pornographic material be allowed in front of young children? He said, this is the question that faces anyone who wants to allow these types of books in schools. No one on this side is trying to say we should ban all books, he said, but you cannot justify all books in schools. Facts don't care about your feelings, he declared. We then moved to the second opposition speaker, which was President of the English Society, Zach Savage. Zach began by admitting that he is wrong about many things in this world, but not this. The average age of children accessing pornographic material is 11 years old in the UK. In response to Jack, he said that there's nothing we can do to prevent this, and it's far better that we educate children in school about sexual education rather than leaving it to the internet. Banning books will result in censorship, he said. This may not be happening in the UK nor Ireland presently, but it's happening around the world, and propaganda definitions are being warped by those in power. Banning books is absurd when children can access these materials on the internet. In fact, this can encourage even further the desire to access banned books when they find out they cannot be accessed traditionally. Third on the proposition was President Dermot Hamill, HLM. He said a point has been consistently made about teens accessing pornographic content on the internet. He then strangely, and for no reason without promise, said that he too has participated in this. However, in school there were state-sanctioned filters which meant that you could not access this sort of content on these school computers. The idea that it is written on a page does not make it more acceptable. He then asked the House, would you put American Psycho into a primary 1 class? No. The idea that because something is written down does not make it even more valid. The school and the state tried to stop Dermot and his friend from gaining access to unholy and repulsive beheadings online. On this, he said, we cannot open the floodgates and let all 14-year-olds read American Psycho, or they may too end up professionally horrific. Dermot said that he is pro-censorship on this matter. Schools do not have the resource nor the ability to decide which books should be offered a place in schools. Finally, on the opposition was Keir Swale, HLM. The prop think that the op will just fill libraries with pornography and Mein Kampf. This is not realistic, either in her speech or in mine. What is going to happen if a child wants to access that material? I'm probably not going to visit my library and ask for these books. She then said, I'm not going to visit my library and ask for the porn book intervention, because intervention is more likely in school than it is on a traditional library or in the internet. Puberty books made for teenagers have been completely banned in some countries, even though they are educational. Politics, Keir noted, is motivating us, and governments in power are warping their ideologies around literature. Access to books about race in the majority of states in America has been heavily restricted, as organisations barrage libraries and schools to remove them. Keir then asked us to imagine for a moment her as a lesbian, and did she have parents that didn't want her to learn about her sexuality? The only way that she would be able to learn anything about that is through the school library, where information should be available on this subject matter. We then moved to questions for the props who's in there, who asked the entire goal. I'm not going to read them, actually, they're very not very Presbyterian. We'll just move to the last slide. We then moved to the vote of speaker ability. There were 10 votes for the proposition, 6 for the opposition, and 4 for the abstention. Thus, the proposition carried the motion. The meeting was declared, and thanks were extended to former President Emeritus Catherine Blanchard.
Thank you, Jack. And it was 8 minutes of minutes. I'm sure we all be glad to be spent here. You're all very, very welcome back to the Literific. So nice to see so many new faces. So you're all very welcome for the first time. Advise you all to buy your membership, £5, get some discounts on things, and you get a nice new card with us this year, which we didn't get last year. So to be thankful to your wonderful president who, of course, delivered this for all the society. Now it's time for council announcements. Do we have any announcements from Look Council Baker?
Yes, 2 bits. So, firstly, tonight after the base, we're going to Lavery's for our weekly social. And secondly, the first charity social of the year is coming up on the 5th of February. It's going to be Uwe Pule, and I'll release more details. If you don't know what it is, find me in the bar after, so you have to come to Lavery's. And I'll put out further details later.
Sure.
Hi, I'm Misha. town convener for those that don't know me. I'm responsible for the lovely town card you see before you. Anyone interested in speaking on any of the debates on there, or anyone thinks that I might be able to convince them to speak on any of the debates in there, please approach me after the debate or in the pub, or track me down on social media and send me a message. Thank you very much.
Daniel?
Yes, hello everyone, hope you're all doing well. I'd just like to draw your attention to some events we have come up in February and drum up some support for them. So on the 4th of February we have Mike Nesbitt for real this time at 7 in the Canada room. And then also on the 19th of February we have Claire Hannah with the SLP in the Memorial Hall at 7. So I hope you can make it, get excited, tell your friends, and hope to see you all there.
Any other friends on No. For those unaware, the SDLP is a small political party. Okay, now it's time for private members' business. So this is your opportunity to read anything you've seen in the news this week and ask the House their opinion on it. So whether it's the news, whether it's Jack's awful tie, or upcoming Tom Burns night. So does anyone have any pieces of private members' business? Stephen,
Hugh Child. I'd just like to talk about some of the executive orders that Donald Trump has signed, including a personal favourite of mine, which is he conflated gender and sex. But the phrasing of it means that your gender is as determined at conception. Those unaware, all mammals start in the womb as female, meaning that all Americans are now female.
anything on Americans being female?
I'm Misha Jarrett, I'm so pleased to announce that I am now in a lesbian relationship with my
Hi everyone.
Just to broaden the topic out a bit to all the executive orders, my favourite one was actually, because it just shows the pettiness of it and what kind of happens when the new president takes office, is that there was one of the executive orders that just has, these are all rescinded, and then a list of every single executive order that Biden signed for the presidency. There's some other good ones as well, but that one was
The Collins. I think we all just need to give some props to Trump because he's the first person, as far as I know, that signed executive orders in a stadium. I mean, imagine that. Imagine Biden trying doing something like that. He'd probably be like, "Oh, what's going on, guys?" So I think we have to give him credit for that.
Anyone else in this last one?
Yeah, my personal favourite of the week was Ground War, HLM treasure. But yeah, my personal favourite was when he was discussing, one of the discussion was about will Trump betray America's allies, which the fact that Spain was contributing 2% of their GDP towards NATO, and he said Spain is a member of BRICS. That's Brazil, Russia, India, China. So yeah, that was.
Any other
for the next 4 years.
Any other? Is it private member?
Can I comment on the?
No.
Tom Burns, hey Tom. In slightly close to home in parliamentary news, there's been a bit of a controversy, if not a better word, discourse is probably the word, stirred in the Northern Ireland Assembly in the past couple of days about the dress code and MLAs not adhering to the dress code properly and coming in looking perhaps informal or not worthy of the office which they hold. So there's a room full of like chaps, businessmen and those in traffic and things. What does this esteemed room think of dress codes in parliaments and whether or not our MLA should dress better than they do?
Just actually on that point, it is mentioned in the standing out orders how speakers are meant to appear in formal attire. So just something to remember. But anyone on formal attire in the formal assembly?
Not to, I won't say it again. Not to, down your knowledge of standard orders, but I actually don't know whether it is in the standard orders. The speakers have to wear formal attire. But it is that the president has to. I don't know. I think it's high on the spot.
Do you have a spare time? You do?
I don't, unless you want that one.
No.
I have two in my
Your ties are too big for me, Joe.
small.
Anybody else on this?
Yes, I think it's Jack Steele. I think that it's beyond deplorable that some people cannot dress themselves to appreciate the responsibility of the office in which they hold, because it's an honour to be elected. Look how Tom's dressed just to see me. These are the things that it's not that difficult to tie a tie. I don't know why people make such a fuss about it. We should really go back to traditional dress standards that were removed in the 1800s. Far better than uniformly all one new classes and we all wore black and white dress, morning dress in the Parliament. Everyone was in uniform. No discrimination. Morning dress keeps everyone the same because you all look the same, you're all wearing something. Now people like t-shirts.
Yeah, I just want to look. Does that adhere to purple corduroy pants?
I think they're called trousers, but
They're purple corduroy trousers. You look like Austin Powers.
well, I don't know very much. I'm sure these trousers are agree. We'll write to it.
Alright.
Okay. Yeah.
Anyone else on this? Any other basic private member business?
Misha Gerard, the Oscar nominations came out today. Has anyone got thoughts on that, or the kind of more closer to home notion that Kneecap has lost out on a Oscar nomination, which I don't think we're hoping
Sorry.
My name's Charlotte Hamill. Yeah, the Oscars just keeps getting worse and worse. I mean, Best Picture had like 10 nominations on it, and I was looking at it, I was like, oh, so everything that was released in 2024 was nominated for Best Picture. Yeah, and I think Kneecap definitely should have been nominated. It was shortlisted, but it didn't get nominated. But Amelia Perez, which sweeped every single award start that got nominated, which is, by the way, it is about a Mexican cartel leader who turned trans women so they got absolved of all of their sins. And yet everyone who's watched it, all Mexicans and trans people, think it's awful, but the award circuit loves it because they seem woke for voting for it. Keep in mind it is directed by a French straight man who can't speak any Spanish, and when asked what it said, I already know everything I need to know. But Kneecap didn't get nominated because it had actual good content in it. I don't know, but yeah, it was upsetting.
Long process there. Issues?
Amelia Perez hit song is La Vaginoplastia. And I think that should be into the house.
I haven't seen the Oscar nominations. I've seen the BAFTA, both those nominations, BAFTAs and the Golden Globes awards that are already awarded. On the subject of Kneecap, the biggest argument, of course, is that they're nominated for outstanding British film at the BAFTA. This is after an actual file published rather than Kevin Bacon regarding whether they should receive funding. She argued that she denied them funding, but they won the court case because, you know, they got very good lawyers to work this case. So I do think, regardless of what happens to the Oscars, the last one Kneecap, I don't really like them. I think they're also kind of despised, and you know. But just from a pure PR point of view, they've already won this festival season, so that's all I would say.
I think it was Seamus Heaney who once remarked that be advised my balaclava is green, no glass of water was raised to toast the Queen. So, you know, I think it's good to see Kneecap following in the right way. Last one.
Just look forward, just last in the Oscar nominations. I hope we're all in agreement that Wallace and Gromit, Vengeance Must Fall should win Best Animated Feature this year.
Right, moving on. Time for President questions. This is your opportunity to ask me anything you want that isn't political. So yes, if anybody has any President's, that was from Big Quick.
What did you have for breakfast this morning?
Name for minutes.
Indonesia.
What was the question?
What did you have for breakfast this morning?
I had McDonald's.
This is a remarkable breed.
And 4 cigarettes.
Who's pricing it?
No, I haven't been smoking it since 2 weeks, right?
Cigarettes are fine.
Can't be arsed about it. Any other President's questions?
Jack Douglas.
If you were to become a pope, what would your regnal name be?
Ooh, never thought about this.
I'm glad.
John Paul, I'd be John Paul. Any other?
So, when I sent the email around to all of our hungry life members, we had a response through from President Emeritus Andrew Brothers, who was glad to hear about our semi-finalists in the Irish Times and wanted to send through his best wishes to them. So can you please ask the Secretary to note that?
Secretary, can you know that, please?
What was it that I needed to know?
The President
No, you
Emeritus.
tell him.
I could do it directly,
Yeah, then that wouldn't be a question.
I've already asked the question, you've already answered it by...
I can oblige.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Everything. I kind of just want this just so close to the minutes, but could you quote what you said about my dad?
Oh yes, that your dad was really fit, that he was a DILF. I absolutely would. I think it was...
There's one other thing that stayed in mind. You have trouble remembering.
I said a lot of things about a lot of people's dads.
I want to go into the minutes that you said, quote, I would totally let your dad bench press me.
I would. Yeah. I think I'd like to be recognised in the minutes that Ray is a really fit dad. Other man in uniform. Any other business questions?
If you, like Donald Trump, could sit at a tiny desk in a big arena and sign an executive order, what would it be and why?
I think that's a good question.
Give it a go.
Could
be about Ray's dad if you really wanted to.
The National Security Advisor lives really, really close to the White House all the time, so perhaps a point Ray's dad. But feeling that I would ban toasters in America, because toasters kill over 350,000 a year. Toasters in the US every year. That's more than one a day. More people are killed by toasters in America than sharks, but you know, people who like shoot sharks, they don't shoot toasters. So that's my one.
Calvin Black, Mr. President, will you commit to using the Society social media accounts to post a picture of Ray's father so that the themselves how fit or not he truly is?
Listen, if Ray wants to send me a picture of her father,
I don't know what you do with it.
printed A2, like attached to my roof. Any other President's questions?
Just standing away from that, Mr. President, could our next joint debate motion be this House believes that Ray's dad's fit?
Yes, it can.
I'm going to tell him all this. Punch you.
Can we flatten it?
It's alright.
Even you probably welcome it. Depending on where you punch
I've done worse. Any other questions?
Alternatively, Mr. President, could it be this House would, and then brackets Ray's dad?
That's not very Presbyterian.
Listen, I'm happy with it. Any other President questions?
Can we hit Control F and search up Ray's dad in document and see how many times it appears?
You will after this. When I raise it all.
This house as Dermot would raise dad. Any other President's questions? Last one.
Why is your moustache back?
Well, Sam, whenever you have hair on your face, if you shave it off, normally it grows back again, and that happened. I'm afraid I wasn't able to stop it this time. It's just going to be stopped.
Keep going and speak to the fire. What? So you keep going and speak to the fire.
I think it's my moustache I want to hold off. There we go. That was largely painless, except for Ray's dad. Now, now it's time for our keep thinking of all things instead of it. Now it's time for our vote on prior opinion. So this is your opportunity to have your say on the motion before our lovely debaters actually give their speeches on it. So the motion at hand is what, Mr. Secretary?
This House would boycott X.
So if you would boycott Twitter, X, instead Twitter, then please raise your hand now.
That would be 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
I got it down. There's not boycott X. There's your hands now. 14, and those abstaining. 3, 4, 5. We have the vote on prior opinion, please.
There were 11 votes for the proposition, 14 for the opposition, and 5 abstentions. Thus, the motion falls on the opposition carried.
Right, quick run through of the rules. Speeches are 7 minutes long. First and last minute is protected time, so that means you cannot offer any points of information during that time. If you'd like to offer a point of information, you can do so in the 5 minutes. Protected time will be signified by the bell. There we go. Offer a point of information that can come from the floor or the speakers. Raise your hand, say on that point of information. POI, do not say point of interest, do not say point of order, point of information. That's your chance. They can accept or decline it. That is your opportunity to offer an intervention of up to 10 to 15 seconds long. Keep them short, keep them brief. And please don't kind of rapid fire them at people. That is barking and not allowed. No swearing. Anybody that swears owes the council a bottle of port. And if you need to leave the room at any time, please do so between speeches, not during, because that's very rude. If you're out there or out there, please be quiet, because the noise carries through. We don't want to hear you, we want to hear these things. So, with that in mind, I call the first speaker for the proposition, Hugh Child.
So let's just start off with a quick quote from Elon Musk, because I think that's actually an appropriate way of starting this. For Twitter to deserve public trust, it must be politically neutral. He wrote that the day he bought Twitter. And I feel like the reason why you would boycott was because of his purchase. That is the thing that we have to confront. And I should as well preface, I'm not a Twitter user. I have tried to get into it a few times, I never really got into it. That was before Musk even bought it, so fundamentally I don't see the point of even using Twitter, let alone boycotting it. But what I will say is that in the modern era, your attention has become highly monetized. So by not using a service, you are sending a clear message to the people who run it. So boycotting is a way of sending a message. That is entirely what it is for. So let's just start off by looking at how Elon Musk has run the platform since gaining power. In the first month of his ownership, in April, he unbanned 12,000 accounts, a decent proportion of which were originally banned for violating Twitter's terms on hate. This included accounts such as Britain First, which aligned itself with the British Union of Fascists, Andrew Agnew, the founder of the neo-Nazi website Daily Stormer, Tommy Robinson, founder of the BNP, Sargon Abakad, a self-described scientific racist, and Donald Trump, who was banned for for promoting an insurrection. But maybe you're just thinking, well, that's freedom of speech for you. It comes at a cost. But the thing is, Twitter doesn't have freedom of speech. To fear parody or criticism is a sign of weakness. That's another quote from Elon Musk. And yet, he banned Kathy Griffin and Ethan Klein for both changing their names to Elon Musk, neither of which were verified. He suspended White Dudes for Harris during the election for raising $4 million, and it was flagged for spam. He suspended the Brov Party, which acted as a direct competitor to the Reform Party when he was particularly warming up to them. He banned Ken Klippenstein for sharing a dossier just criticising J.D. Vance as a vice presidential pick. And he banned ElonJet, which was using publicly available information to track users' jets, basically, as a criticism to climate change. Now, of course, you can just argue, well, that's a safety concern. But the thing is, that hasn't been universally applied. We've seen Twitter being used overwhelmingly to organise attacks. For example, the summer riots. A lot of the accounts that organise the attacks are still up. And we've not even touched on Rachel Reeves, who Elon Musk directly accused of being a rape genocide apologist, which is the counter-extremism unit detailed as an endangerment to the Chancellor. They usually deal with domestic terrorism. He also banned an account which claimed that he bought his Path of Exile 2 account. Criticising Musk is basically a guaranteed surefire way to get banned. Even posting pictures such as this can get you banned because it puts him in a bad light. He's also updated the hate speech rules on Twitter to include things such as making cis and cisgender suspendable offences, but updating so that they would relax Twitter's policies against misgendering, dead-naming, or harassing transgender individuals. So just to clarify, you can get banned for saying you can get suspended for saying cisgender, but harassment is perfectly okay. I mean, banning accounts you disagree with is like refusing POIs in order to win this debate. It's genuinely pathetic and it's sad.
On that point,
go ahead.
I think you've detailed a lot of things about why Elon Musk is a hypocrite, which I can agree with, but I quite like using Twitter, and I don't fancy going over to Blue Sky, which is basically the left-wing version of True Social. So what do you suggest that I do instead?
Don't use it, really. Actually, there's a alternative website called X Cancel, which is basically just X run through a different server so they don't get all the ad revenue. Sends a very clear message. Also, Elon Musk has been overwhelmingly boosting the right on Twitter. The Queensland University of Technology held an experiment wherein, don't worry about it, held an experiment where they found pro-Trump content appears twice as often on Americans' feeds than any other content, which is directly antithetical to the freedom of speech thing. I mean, he also removed the block feature, which meant that actual hateful accounts, if they were directly harassing you, you would have no way of stopping them from continuing to do it.
On that point.
Go ahead.
So a lot of these trends regarding algorithms and kind of the removal of content moderation has now Meta has now done that as well. Would you extend this argument to apply to other social media platforms as well?
Yes. Personally, I don't do Facebook, but we actually did this a while back. I don't like using Facebook. I barely use Instagram as is. I deleted my Threads account recently with the new rules. So, universal application of rules, saying that to do things. And, Media Matters did a report which demonstrated that Twitter routinely puts adverts alongside Nazi content, which has resulted in companies such as IBM, Apple, Lionsgate, Paramount, Comcast, Warner Brothers, Sony, Discovery, Walmart/Asda, Coca-Cola, Uber, the entire nation of Brazil, Airbnb, Ubisoft, Expedia, Fox Sports, and Netflix all stopping their advertising, but the number of adverts has gone up. Ad revenue has declined, but the number of ads has gone up. The fundamental value of the service has decreased. It is significantly worse. Not to mention the amount of misinformation that has just become so prevalent on that app. We're going to wrap this up quickly then. Clickbait is more and more prevalent as time goes on. I mean, that is how it is attention is monetized. That is just how this works. So rage bait is a way of gaining money for a corporation. But as a result, you just see this massive amount of misinformation from extremist groups. I mean, hell, Elon Musk himself retweeted a tweet that said, Jewish communities have been pushing the exact kind of dialectical hatred against whites. And he replied to it saying, you have said the actual truth. There's a Don Quixote quote, fact is the enemy of truth. In continuing to use Twitter, you are telling Musk that none of these things are deal breakers. You are telling him that whatever he does is okay. It's okay for him to promote extremism. It's okay for him to promote hate and stifle criticism of him. And at best, you are basically just saying, no, it's not a deal breaker. I can deal with hate. I can deal with this. I mean, I'm a grown adult. But at worst, you are endorsing these actions. You are telling him he's okay to continue. You are telling him that extremism is okay. I'd recommend otherwise. Thank you.
So very much I speak to you for the opposition given calls.
Before I begin, despite how I know being on the pro-mosque side of 2 debates in a row looks, I want to make the same thing clear as I did last time. I am not an Elon Musk fan. I am not a right-wing supporter. I am not racist or sexist or homophobic. In fact, my reasoning for why we should not boycott X is probably very similar to the opposition's reasoning why we should. I do not want to give Elon Musk or his political comrades any more influence than they already have. Yes, as Hugh stated, for most businessmen, boycotting their product is the most efficient way to inspire change and show them that their actions are not, we aren't going to accept their actions. But ladies and gentlemen, Elon Musk is no ordinary businessman. X is not and has never been about making the most money possible for Elon. X is a vanity project. He purchased Twitter because his fans online told him to, and being the child that he is, he enjoyed the attention so much that he actually did it. There are countless far safer and greater potential investments for a man with the resources that Musk has, but he chose Twitter because he was so desperate for people to care about him and listen to his opinions that he spent $44 billion on a failing social media platform. As Musk knew, Twitter was massively overvalued when he bought it, and X is now worth 72% less than what he paid for it, with little effort being made by Musk to change its trajectory. Boycotting X will not work on Musk because X is not a business to him. If anything, it will make him proud that he has generated such an uproar. However, that is not to say that boycotting X will have no impact. If everyone who disagrees with Elon Musk leaves X, we are handcrafting the biggest alt-right echo chamber that the world has ever seen. For those of you who believe that X has already become a pro-Trump echo chamber, imagine for a moment what would happen if we removed anyone who questions Musk's dubious algorithm or the biases of accounts like Fox News or the Daily Wire. Discourse is to politics what Musk seems to be to Trump, essential. It is unhealthy for anyone, liberal or conservative, to never listen to or even be exposed to the opinions of those who they disagree with. To have liberals on one platform and conservatives on another is to eliminate the only thing which makes democracy more point. I'm sure we've all experienced searching for a statistic that we just can't quite find to back up an argument in a speech. Even though you know that it should work this way, or this should be the case, you just can't quite prove it. And then finally, you find a pre-print research paper from the University of Hull, written in 1989, that doesn't quite prove your point, but that you know you can twist in your favour. It feels a bit like cheating, but you're desperate and your point is good, so you tell yourself it's a necessary evil. This is how so-called political activists like Ben Shapiro and Charlie Kirk operate. They come up with an opinion and then they make the facts fit. Only a lot of the time, the reliable facts don't fit, so they have to twist them to suit their narrative, or if all else fails, just make them up. And just like when you find an iffy statistic for a speech, they justify it to themselves because it suits their worldview. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is the crux of my argument. The people who agree with Elon Musk's views and who would be left behind if we all boycott X will be happy to see us go, because they get to live in a world where they are always right, their opinions are always backed up, and they can all go deeper and deeper into the echo chamber. So if we aren't there to hold the Ben Shapiros and Charlie Kirks of the world accountable, they sure as hell won't. Instead, the more rational right-wingers will slowly become more extreme, and the extreme will become extremer because no one is there to tell them no.
On that point?
Yeah.
Does engaging these people, though, rather than hold them accountable and try and stop them becoming more extreme, just legitimise them, make them double down and become more extreme? You know, I don't spend time on Twitter and feeling heartened by the state of democracy. I come back feeling, if anything, quite deflated about it.
Okay, well, I'm going to explain a little bit more later why I feel like having a platform that's entirely sort of one political party doesn't work. I'm going to talk about that sort of thing. But I feel like, although maybe a lot of the time, you know, say if you're right wing and you see a left wing argument, you think, oh, that's ridiculous. But I think if you're never ever exposed to the arguments of the other side, you can never really learn or grow or change. You just kind of do. You're surrounded by people that a lot of the time maybe have even sort of like crazier opinions than you, but because it's so normalised to you, you don't see anyone disagree with them. I don't think you really see sometimes how those opinions can be wrong or ill-informed. So anyway. Now, I know many of you are probably saying, so what, let them have it to yourselves. And at first glance, this may even seem like an ideal solution. Leave X to the alt-right nut jobs while we all go someplace new that's free from anti-vaxxers and flat earthers and bigots. Well, as a matter of fact, we already have one social media platform that is known for being a cesspit for alt-right and extremist viewpoints, 4chan. Although it was created to be a platform for users to discuss their interests anonymously, it rapidly devolved into a haven for people who wanted a place where they could share their hateful opinions with like-minded individuals. This is where the notion that we should abandon X to the right-wingers is so demonstrably false. There have been multiple instances of school shootings, racial and anti-Semitic violence which have been associated with 4chan users. The most well-known incident occurred just under 2.5 years ago, when a mass shooting occurred in a supermarket in Buffalo, New York. Before the shooting, 18-year-old Peyton Genderson wrote a racist manifesto in which he stated that 4chan introduced him to the Great Replacement theory. He murdered 10 African Americans 2 days later. 4chan has 22 million monthly users. Go ahead.
Elon Musk himself spread the Great Replacement theory with the Jewish community's quote.
Yeah, I'm aware of that. But what I'm saying is, if you let Musk, right, Musk was talking about that on Twitter, but there were people, beneath that tweet going, this is wrong, you're not right about this. Whereas if we didn't have people who were left-wing or liberal on Twitter, no one would really, well, I know some of them would argue, but the vast majority of them aren't going to argue with them because all of the people that support Elon Musk aren't going to boycott. So 4chan has 22 million monthly users, X has 600 million. 4chan was not intended to be an extremist or even a political platform. X is already known for being a political, now right-wing leaning platform. It doesn't even bear thinking about what a 4chan with 30 times the amount of users would look like. Now I hate to break the no-Nazi streak so close to the end of my speech, but we must learn the lessons of history. Allowing people to spout their opinions unchallenged was what led to the death of 11 million people during the Holocaust. Before you roll your eyes at that escalation, members of the House, I would like to remind you that people have already died as a result of online alt-right echo chambers. If we leave the right-wing users to their own devices, any blood spilled by those radicalized on X will be on our hands. It is up to us to use the platform of X to spread awareness, to point out misinformation and biases, and to demand change through action, not inaction. Thank you.
Thank you, Aoife, for that fine speech. Now to continue the case for the proposition.
Good evening, everyone. Mr. President, despite your terrible political opinions, Secretary, Internal Convener, members of the committee, opposition, and other members of the leadership join us tonight. Tonight's debate is a very controversial issue, whether we as a House should continue to use Twitter or X. Now, I'm proud to say that, like Hugh, I don't use Twitter, and under its current state, I never plan to use X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it. Tonight I will lay out why many in this House are sick of the toxic cesspit that is Twitter, why we all should collectively boycott it. Twitter was created by Jack Dorsey in 2006 to share messages, images, and videos through tweets, which users could like or share with friends. They could use it to post funny cat images or to criticize the latest Justin Bieber song. It was used by athletes, movie stars, and even presidents. Barack Obama used Twitter to first declare his re-election victory in 2012. However, problems started to emerge during the 2016 US presidential election. Donald Trump, who previously used Twitter to launch long tirades on Kirsten Stewart and Robert Pattinson's relationship, was now using it as a weapon to spread misinformation to smear his opponent Hillary Clinton. In his first term and now second, Trump uses Twitter as a window in his psyche, as a way to bully political opponents, to introduce his new agenda, and to storm the Capitol whenever election results don't go his way. Trump's use of Twitter before the 2022 Musk takeover represented a threat to democracy that went unchecked. And in 2020, Twitter was also used to spread misinformation about COVID vaccines and Black Lives Matter.
On that point,
go ahead.
When Trump was banned from Twitter, he created his own platform and does the exact same thing anyway. What's the difference between president from doing it?
Well, the difference is Truth Social is entirely his creation. He makes the rules and Elon Musk. I would boycott X, or boycott Truth Social, but that's not the debate for tonight, and also there's not many people to boycott for. One of the main problems that people have with X is its owner, Elon Musk, richest man in the world. Members of the House may remember that in the previous debate, we all voted unanimously that Elon Musk had done more harm than good. It's easy to see why. Because Elon Musk is a megalomaniac, a bigoted man-child who seeks to manipulate the politics of the world. So his acquisition of Twitter to combat the woke mind virus is particularly worrying. Twitter wants a positive community where movements like Black Lives Matter and Me Too could use hashtags to create conversations and hold powerful people to account. But Musk has turned Twitter into a safe haven for far-right conspiracy theories, a cesspool of racism, sexism, homophobia, to thrive under the protection of free speech. Since Musk took over Twitter, the use of the N-word has tripled. Slurs against gay men have risen by nearly 60%. Slurs against trans people have risen by over 60%. And anti-Semitic tweets have doubled. Musk also uses X to express his own twisted right-wing views in immigration and gender identity. Hugh mentioned earlier that now the word cisgender is banned on Twitter. And on that, Musk also hates regulations and fact-checking. He has removed the ability of users to report misleading information, and accounts that consistently publish misleading tweets receive 44% more interactions. The algorithm was found to provide the right voices of right-wing commentators and politicians before Musk's takeover. This has only increased because of Musk's association with Donald Trump. Musk has banned accounts of journalists such as Ken Klippenstein and labelled media bases as state-affiliated, so they are hidden, and has brought back accounts of right-wing grifters. Musk bullies any organisation that reports on hate speech on X. He lost a lawsuit filed against the Centre for Countering Digital Hate. The opposition here may state that no matter how disgusting the rhetoric, free speech should be allowed, but may I remind them that free speech and amplified speech are very different things. Spreading conspiracy theories is free speech, but amplifying them with a giant digital megaphone is not. That's amplified speech. Musk has made over 50 false election claims for the 2024 election, including sharing blatant racist and misogynistic claims about Kamala Harris. He's used the app to stoke division for public support of far-right parties such as Reform UK in England and the AfD in Germany. His alliance of anti-Muslim rhetoric, as well as the claim that the civil war in the UK was inevitable, led to the disgusting racist riots seen in the summer. His frequent dismissal of Keir Starmer and call to liberate the people of the UK from their tyrannical government is concerning for this Parliament. Musk holds a concern about political power in his newfound partnership with Donald Trump, and anyone who has doubts about Musk's true intention had their question answered with his accidental Nazi salute on the day of Trump's inauguration. Therefore, we should take away any power that he has through boycott. Musk is terrible at running Twitter as a business. He sacked 80% of its workforce, including the moderation team. 1 million people have left Twitter as a result of his management. The blue tick feature is now a payable feature, which means identifying distinguished accounts is now near impossible. X has lost half of its advertising revenue, and suspension of accounts have tripled since Musk's takeover. As Hugh has pointed out, suspensions could be for something as simple as posting images of him with people that may be in prison, or posting like Elon Jet. Now obviously Elon Jet is a security concern, but consider there are other accounts that follow, say for example Taylor Swift's jet. It's just a case of the hypocrisy of Musk and X. One road for him, another road for others. A poll taken in May 2024 by the Harris Group and Axios found X to be the least trustworthy tech company. Their reputation is only going to soar further among the general public if they continue to allow child sexual abuse material to remain on the site, if Musk introduces a £7 charge for signing up for Twitter, and if more is revealed about X selling user data to government forces. The opposition defence is that this debate is about X, not Musk. But any good company is as good as its owner, and Musk's bad reputation continues to wreck the reputation of X. People may believe the only way to send a message to Musk is to stay on his app and try and change the minds of his followers. But when we play at his house, he can take the ball and go home. If we play by his rules, we lose, so why do we even play at all? Musk is making Twitter poisonous. Why should we still use it? We have other social media accounts. We have Blue Sky, and also mentioned earlier, we have X Cancel. The solution to all collective action problems is coordinated action between us all take through boycott. If we all stop using X, Musk and his board of directors will take notice and stop weaponizing the app. Many politicians, corporations, and media organizations have already left X, such as the European Federation of Journalists, The Guardian, and Balenciaga. Celebrities such as Elton John have also deleted their accounts. Boycotts have been successful against companies such as McDonald's and Starbucks for supporting Israel. Why can we not try it with X? It is not censorship to take a stand against them, and to take a stand against a man who is essentially trying to become a global dictator. It won't be benefiting him if we all leave X. We don't need to give him attention by continuing to remain on his app. It won't make him proud if we all leave. I hope the House will join me in making a stand for our human right to free information and to stay away from the intolerant right wing. And the truth and decide to withdraw the use of an app that eventually does more harm than good. I rest my case.
Thank you for that excellent speech. Now to continue, please, for the opposition to Farnon.
Thank you, everyone. I haven't made much preparation, but it's a topic I'm quite passionate about, so I'm more than happy to speak from the heart on this issue. So these guys are talking about intolerance in the right wing. Okay, that's quite interesting because every time I go on Twitter, it's the left wing. Okay, it's a complete bubble. Okay, it's really quite crazy. And we talk about intolerance. Okay, I've been blocked multiple times, and the stuff I say is quite common sense. Maybe it's a sewer bot account, I'm not too sure, that's what some people would say, but I think it says a lot of good things. Anyway, so why boycott it, okay? Okay, granted it might have some issues if you're woke, etc., etc. But here's the thing. Do you know what are we going to go to? Where's everyone going to go to, okay? I don't really understand. I think Twitter really is the best medium. Now it has its problems, but I think, what can you do? I prefer the Daily Mail. The Express is alright, okay, but I think really Twitter is the best of all the forms. No one has really reached the heights of Twitter. Blue Sky is practically woke. Yeah, go ahead.
What does woke mean?
Well, it depends. Generally, it's just the stuff I disagree with. So, I guess getting back to the more serious point is, there's no real thing, saying Twitter's bad, there may be some problems with it. Talk about misinformation, etc., etc. I don't really see much misinformation, and I guess I'm glad the Guardian's gone because they're probably the biggest propagators of misinformation. So that's quite a positive development, I have to say. But on a more serious note, I think Twitter could really be compared to Wetherspoons. It's such a way that people can have a nice discussion and talk about politics. It engages people who might not really have a voice, do you know what I mean? I might not have the same voice to, I don't know how many followers I have, probably about 10 or so, but it gives me a platform so I can read news that I might not usually know about, become more educated, and then discuss and...
Point of information.
Go ahead.
What have you become more educated about since you're on Twitter?
Well, I actually found out that they are trying to push back the elections of Surrey County Council, which is quite a concern for me. And actually, about not challenging views and so on, it was actually the Conservative leaders of Surrey County Council who wanted to postpone the elections, and I'm someone who's quite a strong Conservative character. But I'm actually against that. Because I'm a very pro-freedom and democracy advocate, and I was completely against it, so it changed my mind, do you know what I mean? I don't think it's an echo chamber. I have changed my mind once or twice by reading other people's engagements. Anyone have any questions? Oh yes, also, yes, there's actually a few other points as well. Actually, I thought that Twitter's quite valuable, actually, because I'm an independent anti-woke activist. That's one of the things I do. And if you sort of boycotted Twitter, I wouldn't really have much else to do. I don't have much to activate on. I guess that's really it.
On that point?
Go ahead.
Can you not also inform the House about your opinions on Lady Gaga, which you share on...
Oh. Yeah, I also do some non-political posts as well. About Lady Gaga, who's a great singer. I guess there's not really much else to say. Oh yes, also, it would be very nice if you voted for me, because it's my third time speaking, and I haven't won yet, so I'm hoping for third time lucky. But all jokes aside, I think everything I've said makes a lot of sense. Feel free, guys, go ahead, because you're not questioning me, you're not saying anything. You're just letting my tirade go unchallenged, which really does validate the fact that I'm right. If you want to combat some misinformation, why not ask me a question? Guys, ask me a question.
Point of information, you say you have nothing else to do if you leave Twitter. Truth Social is like there, bro. Go ahead.
No, I don't know. I don't know if there's anyone I can wind up on that. I haven't gone blue sky, it's woke. What do you mean it means nothing? You know, woke is pretty bad, and I think Twitter's been able to challenge it. You look at Rachel Thieves, also Rachel Freeze as well, which is another one of my favourites. Everyone's talking about misinformation. Okay, but how are we supposed to challenge the UK government? Do you know what I mean? Everyone's looking at the negative side, but we need to speak up, and I think Twitter gives a really good avenue of approach for that. I think that's the end of my rant. Bye everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, George. That was certainly a speech. Now, to close the case of the proposition and making a maiden speech, Neil Ross.
Well, that's a speech and a half, isn't it? Obviously, this is my maiden speech. I'm making great first impressions of somebody. I actually thought I would start before this telling you that I'm actually from Croydon, and I think this actually really helps from X Social. It's not far from Surrey, except for we don't think like that. And the reason that I mention Croydon is because I think it represents what a great modern society is. Its strengths in its diversity, in its views. We all have different customs and different beliefs, and we're able to talk about them in a great forum, respectfully. I don't see that with X. I don't, and I don't see it with Twitter. Twitter has become such an oratory for hate and violence and fear that I think it would just be, if you're out of respect of different views, different minorities, then we should boycott it. I've got from a journalist, Lozano, it is hard to boycott X. A lot of people have an emotional attachment to it. We remember Twitter, we remember all the old tweets. But it's like a toxic relationship. We have to leave. We have to leave our respect for the other people. And I wanted to talk about why this oratory of hate has been able to develop, why the far right have been emboldened. But even then, I think if you're on the more traditional right, you can see, even if you are a supporter of, I don't know, Margaret Thatcher, you should, my son, you should be able to see clearly why X emboldens the far right, not just far right, alt-right, and negatively impacts the key liberal individual liberties that we are so accustomed to. X emboldened the far right not just by giving them a platform to speak for, but also giving them physically money and capital. And I'm not even making this up. After the horrible Southport riots, someone that was described as a keyboard warrior called O'Rourke was given £1,400 by the company X. I would like any of you in this room to look me in the eye and say that after the Southport riots, after what we saw here or in Rotherham, that was correct. And I don't think any of you could, personally. I don't also think that you could look people that were in the hotels with the asylum seekers, and I don't think you could tell them to boycott X wouldn't be the right thing. I also wanted to talk about what actually is freedom of speech, because freedom of speech is not freedom from reaction. We have to be tolerant of other people's views. I was very tolerant sitting there when I was hearing about the Daily Mail and all different sorts of forum that honestly I think would be burnt if they went into Croydon. But we can't be so tolerant that they undermine the practice of individual liberty. We need to be able to self-determination and self-fulfillment. We cannot have that if we feel anonym to society. Anonym means an outcast. What X is able to do is that it makes people feel like they're anonym. If you are, for example, part of the LGBTQI community, you feel anonym because of X, because you see the hate speech that's on there. You see it's not being challenged, you see it's not being tackled, and then your personal claim to self-determination, self-fulfillment cannot be fulfilled.
Hold on.
Yes.
No, I don't.
I'm talking from personal experience here. I've seen it, and if you are not tackling it, you cannot fulfill your individual liberty. You cannot. Because if you think other people in society see you as anonym, that does not count. And also, freedom of speech was basically built on the principle of John Stuart Mill and the harm principle. We can say whatever we want as long as we do not harm somebody else, or if we do not discriminate against somebody else. X gives a blue light, and sometimes, yes.
Why should we respect that principle? We have freedom of speech. Why should we not harm bad people? I mean, should we not speak up?
I'm not saying we're harming bad people, I'm saying we should not harm people that should not be harmed. And it's kind of, if we look at cancel culture, that's a big thing that's like, woke, it's cancel culture. I think it's not an arbitrary, it's not a binary thing, sorry. It's not a key set in stone thing, what should be cancelled and what's not. But when you see the tweets by Tommy Robinson, when you see the tweets that's given out by Flo O'Rourke or Lawrence Fox, then I think it's quite clear what it counts as a harm principle. And finally, X on society. X, since it's been taken over by Elon Musk in 2022, has emboldened and allowed for a polarisation in society. And I want this to bring it back to Britain. I have seen personally, I've seen it there and then, of how polarisation affects different communities. It makes us more separated. It has to be remembered that social media was firstly made as a local community tool. It was made as a square of culture. Well, yes.
Surely if we remove everyone who doesn't support Elon Musk from X, we're becoming more polarised because we've got people who do support Elon Musk and people who don't.
I would agree to an extent, but I don't agree that validating somebody's views by fighting them on their own turf is always correct. But anyway, as I was saying, social media was firstly used as a town square, a global meeting place, so we could just discuss ideas in the local community. This has all changed. The future of social media looks increasingly segregated, particularly for user safety. And this was actually from an article by Gary in The Guardian. And as much as it is easy to say we should stay on Twitter and we should just ignore other people's views, I believe the harm that they're doing to people that are personally affected, the individual liberty that they're not allowing, the lack of reaction is not taking this oratory of hate seriously, it's not being the arbiter of what's being able to be said, undermines X's standing in the world. And that is why I think it should be boycotted. It has never been right to discriminate. It never will be right to share conspiracy theories that harm minority groups. That's why I think X should be boycotted. Have I made my case articulate? No, I haven't. And this is my maiden speech, and I can't lie, you guys are terrifying. You're absolutely terrifying. And after that, I did not know where to go, because the corridor was right into Surrey, and I thought, oh my god, it's like being back in high school. Although we didn't have the day because we went to a state school. But thank you for listening. I hope some of it made sense. God knows I won't back.
Thank you all for an excellent maiden speech to close out the debate with Duffy.
So, this House Would Boycott Twitter, right? So I stand firmly in the opposition. So while Twitter or X, I use these both because I can't remember distinctly either one. So while Twitter or X has its flaws, its role as a platform for global communication, and especially for citizen journalism, is indispensable. A boycott would harm not only the platform's users, but also the global exchange of information. So rather than abandoning Twitter, we must stay on the platform, engage with it, and push for its improvement. Let us first consider Twitter's vital role in crisis communication and citizen journalism, a function that no other platform can really match. So unlike traditional media, which operates under editorial constraints and delays, Twitter allows individuals to report news on the ground in real time. So consider the Arab Spring in 2010 and 2011, where Twitter played a crucial role. Similarly, during the 2022 invasion of Ukraine, Ukrainian civilians were able to use X to document the Russian troop movements. share images of the devastation, and to connect refugees with finding aid.
On that point?
Yes.
A lot of these occasions, though, in the heat of the moment of those kind of things, not only does news spread or photos or evidence of things happening, a huge amount of misinformation also spreads at the same time in those immediate moments sort of following an event like that. And that often causes an awful lot more damage on down the line that can it's very difficult to kind of recover from.
You're absolutely right, Tom. So Twitter does allow for rapid information, which means also by extension it allows for rapid misinformation. But the advantage that Twitter has is, well, we don't defeat misinformation with censorship or boycotting it. We defeat it by more information, by correct information. So, for example, when people were spreading misinformation during the 2023 Turkey and Syria earthquakes, some people were spreading like false reports about additional quakes and stuff like that. However, because it allows for rapid dissemination of information, it allows for the actual truth to come out as well. So yes, misinformation can spread easily, but because of that speed, the truth can spread easily as well. Let's talk about the risks of a boycott. So if responsible citizens and journalists leave Twitter, the space is going to be dominated by misinformation and extremist voices. So rather than do that, I propose an alternative. We do acknowledge Twitter's challenges, its struggles with information, but abandoning it isn't the solution. Instead, we should push for things like greater algorithm transparency. We need collaboration between professional journalists and citizen journalists, citizen reporters to enhance credibility. These measures seem to me a much better alternative than simply boycotting. Some of the broader implications of boycotting Twitter sets a dangerous precedent of disengagement when we face with complex problems. It sets a precedent of running away from difficult issues.
Point of information?
Yes.
We're not arguing for disengagement from the news, we're just saying engagement not through X because there's too much misinformation. There are other social media apps out there that keep people connected without misinformation.
Well, there are other apps, but the problem is they're not as big, they're not as widespread. I mean, Twitter is just the biggest platform out there for this type of content, so I really don't think it's wise to just abandon it without trying to change it at least. So boycotting Twitter, I think, would disproportionately affect those who rely on it for professional and personal purposes, small businesses, local activists, local citizen journalists, that type of things, local educators, all use Twitter too.
Yes, should those people be higher in standard compared to people that are negatively affected by misinformation, such as we saw in the Duffy riots, for example, like minority groups?
So I'm not sure what we mean by higher standard.
So why should we not boycott X? Because professional people need to use it. However, it still will affect minority groups through the misinformation that's spread online.
Well, I suppose, just go back to Tom's point about misinformation spreading, that the way to counter that isn't by leaving the platform en masse. The way to deal with misinformation, and the advantage that Twitter has, is it allows for the truth to rapidly come out as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, as I come to my conclusion, boycotting Twitter is not the solution. Its role in crisis communication, citizen journalism, and global activism is unparalleled. It empowers ordinary people to inform and drive change. So while the platform does have extreme flaws, abandoning it would only exacerbate them. So instead, I urge you to oppose this motion and join me in advocating for improvement, not abandonment. Thank you.
Thank you, Luke. That fine speech. Time for questions. So if you have a question for the proposition.
A point that kind of follows on in some ways from parts of Luke's speech that doesn't really address in any of your speeches. Whenever something happens, whenever news happens in any capacity, the first place I look more often than not is Twitter. It's where most of the journalists in the world probably is their primary voice and primary funnel for putting news out. If I want to know what's happening, I don't comment to anyone the breaking news, I will check Twitter, I will then check the news sites after the fact. There's still, as much as Twitter's gotten worse, and I agree it's gotten worse, there's still an immense value in Twitter. At that point, that balance hasn't tipped yet from being useless. There's still a huge worth in Twitter in terms of getting news and disseminating information. And I wasn't really interested in anyone's speech really. I just want to see if anybody's had anything to say about it all.
Well, while there is a lot of value in Twitter due to the number of journalists, there is also the fact that Elon Musk has personally banned quite a lot of them. And a lot of them have been forced to move on to, say, Blue Sky, Reddit as well. I've noticed. But while, yeah, it is important that Twitter does have this level of communication going on, we overwhelmingly see it dying out. Overwhelmingly, you see right-wing content boosted against left-wing and things that do not put the right wing in a good light. But to answer your original question of where else do you really get it, I will say that since when Blue Sky opened, like November-ish, 27 million people have moved over to Blue Sky from Twitter. Actually, about 3 million have gone to other places, but there is the conversation has moved. Not all of it, I will admit. I'm sure that a lot of it has stayed on Twitter, but there is still a significantly large conversation that's just moved to Blue Sky.
I'm just about to point out, I can't. Opposition reform.
You talk about misinformation, I'll just say is I've challenged a lot of misinformation. So yeah, I think Twitter actually provides a very good platform for that happening. I don't know where else I could challenge misinformation in such a good format.
Like it's not there.
Yeah, I'd say that would be my main point. And I think you're right. A lot of people do use Twitter as a thing. What I think is good about Twitter, people talk about echo chambers, etc. But you're able to tailor the news, maybe a bit more than some news sites, because there's sometimes very niche issues that maybe aren't covered that you can actually find out more on Twitter, because there's just not the traditional media format to support that sort of independence. And I think Twitter provides the freedom and liberty for people to democratise the news away from whatever and just focus on what could be important to them. Yeah.
Question for the opposite? No, it's not. Yep, skip me for it.
So this is my first time then. This is against X being on.
It's a question for
the question for us. So for the first point, that more reasonable voices should stay on Twitter so that they can combat the flow of disinformation. I worry that instead of a kind of continued fight that is really disadvantaged towards more reasonable voices, we'll see the kind of users you describe as fighting against extremist snoopers leak out from Twitter anyway, and we'll kind of end up in the same place where we're devoid of anyone with a particular subset's opinions, which that was what happened to much of Facebook. And I was wondering if you could address those concerns for me.
Well, I suppose that seemed to be so. Well, so what you're saying is, what if there wasn't a Twitter boycott, eventually everybody might give up and leave Twitter anyway?
Yeah, but it's slowly happening over time.
Well, I mean, yeah, that could happen, but I suppose a Twitter boycott is basically having it happen immediately. So obviously I can't say whether or not every more left-leaning person's gonna leave Twitter eventually, but I suppose why would we, make that happen right now immediately on purpose rather than let it sort of happen over time if you're accepting that it is a negative thing, which I think it is.
Positive. Or positive. If you want to do that, no problem. Okay. Question. 10 for an abstaining question. So for those that are unaware, an abstaining question is a question put fairly to both sides. I thought I didn't have to open with this monologue, but the last time I didn't, somebody decided to try and offer a biased question. So that means if you open your question with "this is more for the proposition," "this is more for the opposition," you will not be allowed to continue with your question, and I will feel great hatred and rage towards you and your brother. So if you have an abstaining question, please raise your hand now. You should speak a lot, man.
So Twitter has got this feature called community notes. So I just want both sides' views on community notes, and do you think they combat misinformation?
Yeah, fun fact for you. Before Elon Musk bought Twitter, there was actually behind the scenes introduced independent fact-checking into Twitter. It was actually around for a short while as Elon Musk owned it, then he later replaced it with community notes after he laid off about 80% of Twitter staff to save money, basically. I think it's an interesting feature because it does allow for a decent counterpoint. Especially because it basically allows someone to clap back within the original post. It can be funny more often than not, but it has nowhere near the same value as actual fact checking. Not to mention the fact that it just simply doesn't work half the time. Most of the time you just get someone saying something's happening, and then the community note says, no it isn't, and no source involved in either. Meta is also trying to add this on Facebook as well, because the independent fact checkers are costing too much. And I have to say, you have to eventually realise that fact and reality have to come into class. You have to actually put in the effort for it. And these companies, they choose profit over societal good.
I can tell you. Yeah, community notes. Yeah, I think I do agree with you, to be honest. I think, yeah, community notes, there are some problems with it. I mean, they can be kind of funny sometimes, but I think overall it's a good feature to have it.
Sure. All right. No, we don't have time for any questions. Okay. Now is time for our vote on speakerability. So this is not the side that you agree with. This is the side you believe spoke best, offered the best arguments, and orated them in the best way. So, if you believe the proposition spoke best, please raise your hands now. Nine? Those who believe the opposition spoke best. And those that like to abstain. Yes. We have a vote on speakability, please, Mr. Secretary.
There were 9 votes for the proposition, 13 votes for the opposition, and 8 votes for the 8 abstentions. Thus, the opposition have the vote on speakerability.
That is all from us. We're all going to go down to Lampreys now, so you're all very welcome to join us. We will be back here at the same time, at the same place, for this House Would Legalise Cannabis.
Yes.
So, get your smoke on, go come stone. And if you want to, if you want to sign up for any debates, speak to me.
I'm always
this one.
picture.